Hey there, everybody. It's June, and you know what that means on the Bad Anime Podcast? Titties, basically. Yeah, we're going to talk about a different harem anime every single week this month. It's Harem Month. If you don't know what a harem anime is, it's when there's kind of a dude and he's surrounded by a bunch of waifus, essentially. So that it's going to be really silly. It damaged me a lot mentally this month, but I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for clicking on the show. Let us know what you think, and happy 4 weeks of Harem Month.
It's bad anime.
All right, everybody. I don't know what to do. Hey, everybody. I'm John.
And I'm Tits McGee.
And this is Bad Anime, the show where we decide, is this anime bad? And today, Rob, Tits McGee.
You can call me Rob.
All right, Rob, what show are we talking about today?
Well, Jumblies, I mean boobies, I mean bouncy. Today, we're talking about a show I mentioned briefly on a previous monthly special when you and I were planning.
Yes.
Where you and I were planning our legendary Best Girl Day, the day every February we get tanked and watch a harem anime with a bunch of friends, and then make a tier list out of the waifus. One of the shows I thought about watching for it but didn't pick was this one. My First Girlfriend is a Gal, or Hajimete, or in the Japanese title, Hajimete no Gal. That's the show we're watching today because I realized there was way too much here to skip out on. I'm like, I think we have to talk about this one on the show in a proper format.
And boy, are you right in saying there is way too much here, because there is way too much. Okay, because I remember when you suggested this for Best Girl Day, right? And you were like, okay, so we can watch either one of these shows, right? And it's Harem Month, obviously, this month, so we got to talk about all of them.
Oh yeah, we should clarify it's Harem Month.
Happy Harem Month. I mean,
Happy Harem Month.
I had something that I recorded to run as an intro for all these, so don't worry about that.
I should have asked you about that before we recorded this one then.
Nah, how would you know?
That's fine.
But we talked about doing this one for Best Girl Day, and you were like, this was in the candidacy. It was either this or Mother of the Goddess Dormitory, and you were like, all right, one of them is fine and offensive, but the other one is extremely offensive. And I was like, all right, what's the extremely offensive one? And you're like, it's called My First Girlfriend is a Gal. And we decided on Mother of the Goddess Dormitory due to the amount of waifus.
Yes.
But this one, let me tell you, you did not skimp out on the description, because, boy, is this show just the most offensive piece of garbage I've ever seen.
Oh my God. Coming in hot.
Such an offensive piece of programming. Also, it was great.
It was offensive garbage and amazing.
And it was also simultaneously hilarious and amazing.
I don't even know where to start. I'm so excited to dive into this.
I could not contain my emotions. But for everybody else out there that's never seen this, or for people that have and want a quick summary, right? Okay, here we go.
Wow.
It's basically
You're
a show. I'm very excited to talk about this one. I've been very excited all week. But this takes place in a high school, obviously, right? And you have this cast of characters. The main character that we all gotta know is Junichi. Junichi is the boy. Junichi is that pervy guy in the anime that wants to just have sex and see boobs all the time. But he can't because he's a big nerd.
He's a big nerd and a virgin. Yeah. They keep hammering home the fact he's a virgin. It's really funny.
They do, all the time. And then he has all these friends that are also nerdy and virgins. So, classic scenario, I can relate. We can relate.
We've been there, pal. We've been there.
Oh, yes. And so throughout the show, Junichi is just trying to get laid, but also trying to be a good guy at the same time. So It's a bit of a clusterfuck over here, but that's where we'll start.
Yeah, it turns out to be a huge clusterfuck for everyone involved, because like you said, we start out, it's Junichi going, oh no, I'm never gonna get laid, and he has the three friends, and I'm trying to remember their names.
I know all of them.
Yeah. So we have Shinpei, who was one of them, who was he was one with the glasses, right?
Yes, Shinpei.
Shinpei is the smart perv. But he's a little more aggressive than your typical nerdy perv with glasses. He's the one who shoot you with facts, and he's like, just go for it, dude. Go. Fuck her.
He's very like literally like that. He's very like confident and cunning, but in like a very dumb way. Because he's just like he's the guy that like he will say anything and you will believe him no matter what. And every time he's like, "Yo, Junichi, all you gotta do, man, is just get on your knees and beg her to be your girlfriend. It'll totally work." And he's like, and they're all just like, "Oh, I mean, like, I guess I'll do that. I mean," and he's like, "You don't want to be a virgin forever, do you?" And everybody's like, "Aren't you a virgin?" He's like, "No."
And that's essentially Shinpei's entire character, and it just gets more extreme as the show gogoes on. We have Keigo next, the blonde, who is just really there to kind of back up Shinpei in a lot of ways. Just go like, "Yeah, bro." He's a little less aggressive, but he's more of like the quote unquote bro. You know, he's the guy to show
full on hype man, like AKA like third member of NSYNC kind of member. He's like the third. He's like just the guy that's there that just like looks like a guy.
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to name off all the NSYNC members right now?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, Justin Timberlake, JC Chasez, Joey Fatone, Lance Bass, and Chris. Shit.
Oh!
I'm very.
You made a lot of headway there. I mean, I only know Joey Fatone and Lance Bass and Justin Timberlake, so that was pretty good.
No respect for JC Chasez, the guy who put the entire group on his back.
Actually, JC Chasez, big tangent because
Chris Kirkpatrick, sorry. I forgot his name.
Oh, Chris Kirkpatrick. But JC Chasez has a song that is absolutely hilarious, and I want you to hear it so badly.
Was it All Day Long I Think About Sex?
Yes, it is exactly that song.
Yeah.
It's All Day Long I Dream About Sex, and it is probably the best song I've ever heard.
When I heard it, I was just so upset for the first time. I was like, "Oh, JC, what are you doing? You picked this JC. One?" Because I mean, because when you look at it, because the lead vocals of NSYNC were split up between two guys, JC Chasez and Justin Timberlake. Look where JC is. Look where JT is.
Big jump.
I think JC could have been there if he just picked better songs and worked with better producers. You know, because if you listen to the JT singles versus the JC stuff, it's night and day. I prefer JC's voice more personally, but you know, Timberlake had that nice sensitive tenor swooning that all the girls love, and we were supposed to be talking about anime, so maybe we'll go back to that right about now.
All right.
Anyway,
so we were talking about their friends.
We have Keigo.
Continue.
We have Keigo, who's just kind of a dude. At one point in the show, later on, he shows up in like a pink button down with the collar popped and a gold chain. I'm like, that is the exact vibe. That is the physical embodiment of the vibe of Keigo.
Me too. Yes, that's exactly what I saw him in even before he wore it. It was beautiful. And let's go to the last friend, who is in no way controversial.
No way. He just really, really likes little girls. A lot. And he reminds you of it constantly.
And you know it because every episode, I would even argue that every line this character says is a line about being a pedophile. Seriously being a pedophile.
I just watched the last 2 episodes today, and I think the ratio is like every like 2 or 1 out of 3 lines, it's him with something pedo-y. I think maybe 2 out of 3, but that was a soft episode.
Oh my God. It was, so at the beginning of the show, we can just talk about the evolution of this for a second, because at the beginning of the show, Minato would like say like a one offhanded comment about like, Minoru would say like a one offhanded comment once in a while about like, oh yeah, and I just love little girls. You know, little girls are great. Yep. And everybody would be like, yeah, whatever, Minoru. And then they'd continue talking. And then throughout the show, it just got more towards like a big reality that you as a viewer just had to accept and move on.
That he's a pedophile.
Yes.
And at one point he said something to the effect of like, all I dream about is getting a love note written in crayon. And it's like, oh my God, Minoru.
And then, like, within the first few episodes, too, like, one of the characters, the girls in the show, is Nene, who is...
Nene.
Yes, who's Junichi's childhood friend. And she talks like this, Junichi. And it's very weird. She talks like a baby.
She's very small in stature, but she has boobs that are big. Each of them are bigger than her head.
Her boobs are actually, I would argue, as a scientist, 3/4 of the mass of her body.
Yes.
Like the amount of body mass, and they also go back to flashbacks of them in elementary school, and her boobs are still that big. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And within the first few episodes,
yeah,
she is like palling around with Junichi at school, and Minoru's like, oh, Junichi, who's your friend? And then she runs up and she's like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm Nene. I'm actually in your high school class. And he's like, not interested.
Yes, and then he walks away.
Oh my God, this man.
I think the exact line, he goes, ew, get away from me, Grandma. It's like, ha.
And also, but one of my favorite parts about this was scrolling down to the Crunchyroll comments after every episode.
Right.
Because every episode, the Crunchyroll comments would be, the first at least 10 would be like, yo, this show's really funny, but yo, they gotta stop with the Minoru stuff. It's actually nuts.
Exactly. Because the show in general is fucking hysterical without Minoru. It's funny. But like every time Minoru's on screen, you have to be wary.
You do. You have to just make sure nobody's around if you're watching the show. Because
super pedo-y. It's like, oh no, Minoru, no. What are you doing,
Minoru,
bud?
Please stop.
That's the thing.
Every episod.
Every fucking time he opens his mouth. So we should explain what happens. Junichi is just a guy trying to pop the cherry, trying to get some action down there.
Yeah, get his hog in the dirt, baby. Going 30 miles an hour straight into semen dirt. Yeah, whatever.
That was great. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, you incorporated a hog in there. You incorporated semen. That's just wonderful. Anyway, so it was actually Shinpei who goes, just try to ask out that girl. And we meet Yukana.
Yes.
Who is what in Japan, I think I talked about this before a little bit on the previous episode. She's a garu. And garu. It's like an urban subculture in Japan. I've seen a few of them in person, and each time I just went, what the fuck, you're real? But anyway, they're girls who actively try to reject typical Japanese beauty standards. So a lot of them are tanned, maybe even spray tanned, but definitely tanned. A lot of them go with bleached hair or like some combination of bleach and dye, like with a blonde base, but some other fun colors thrown in. And a lot of very bright and colorful accessories because, Japanese corporate fashion is all about the super dark colors. You got your gray, your black, and your navy, and you're done.
Right. You're Uniqlo chic, if you will.
Exactly. I mean, well, Uniqlo, the biggest Japanese, one of the biggest Japanese. Exactly. So, exactly. But so it actually is a subculture. And in this subculture, they do have a dialect where they just, it's just they say Japanese dialects are very interesting because we don't get it too much in America where like we have accents certainly, but not too much dialects where like certain words changes. The only example I can think of is like in some parts of America, if you go to the Midwest, they'll stop calling soda, they'll call it pop.
Yeah.
Closer to Canada especially. But if you go south, they'll refer to all soda as Coke. Like, what kind of Coke you want? And then next thing you know, they'll be like, all right, I got Coke, I got Sprite. What kind of Coke you want? It's like, you said Coke, and other soda's like, what are you talking about? I got Coke. So, that's just the South.
And then you do a bunch of cocaine, and then you wake up back home. We've all been there.
Oh, the time travel drug. It's great. But
yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean you can fly afterwards. But anyway, no. So just give very inaccurate information about cocaine. But anyway, so but anyway, they have these dialects, right?
Good thing it grows on trees, Sorry, I'm done. Continue.
Hey, oh, don't you love all those cocaine trees in Colombia? But anyway, so they guy who's have like this dialect, they say things differently, and they have like kind of accents, different annotations. So the dub directors, bravo immediately, by the way, about everything you've done on the show.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Especially whoever wrote the fucking script for the show deserves an Emmy. But
yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
What they decided to do to kind of like, I guess, kind of localize or make this dialect more readily understandable to an American audience, predominantly American audience, to be honest. I could say Western, but we predominantly mean American when we say that. They gave every garu in their show like a Valley Girl accent.
Yes, it was very Valley Girl. I was waiting for you to say that because their accents were so absolutely hilarious. And,
Yes.
you know, they were also referred to in the show as gals, right?
Yes.
Or like,
Got it, yeah.
that's the title of the show. My first girlfriend is a gal.
Yeah, so they're gals, yeah.
And gal is that subculture, and the way that they translated it into American culture was absolutely hilarious. Is like a girl who's like always on her phone, always like, you know, knows these terms that nobody else knows, these acronyms that everybody's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, super.
Very, like,
it's like
speak.
it's a combination between like hipsters and rebels, and you know, it's a combination of like a lot of subcultures we have here in America, but. It's great that they took the extra step to make sure we understood the cultural barrier there. So even if you watch a show with no concept of what a gal is, you would understand it, which is why.
Oh, you'd get it immediately.
So again, credit to the entire cast and crew behind this dub for making that understandable. Because clearly, you know, we're gonna be talking about the dub a lot here because the dub for us is probably a lot of why personally I enjoy the show tremendously. Because
I agree.
There's just so many lines and so many moments in the show. I'm like, I've never heard that in an anime before. Why did he speak like Yoda for 5 seconds? Why? You could even
it was really funny. Even like all like the little quips that were made throughout the show, and also like the voice acting itself. Like anytime, like specifically like Yukana, and like we'll continue plot in a second, but the plot is very, very easy to understand. But every time like Yukana would like talk to Junichi, she'd be like, Junichi.
Junichi. Hey, boyfriend.
Hey, boyfriend. You're being a real big wet blanket right now, Junichi.
Yes, just...
I need you to get your shit together, Junichi.
And that's what she would say at every opportunity. And also, by the way, I don't know where we are in the scheduling, but the actress who played Yukana in the dub of this also played Ria Scremery in High School DxD. So.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, High School DxD came out first this month, so that means
perfect.
we're right on track.
So we're right behind it now. So we're fresh off our memories of DxD, and next thing you know, we're blessed again by Her Majesty Ria Scremery.
That's so funny. That so what you said about like the dialogue in the show really strikes a chord, because there were a lot of times in the show that I just genuinely laughed because of the dialogue or like the lines that were being said. Because I think like in the first episode, I wrote this down because I was like, this has to be understood. Because in the first episode, it opens with an immediate shot of vag, and you just hear somebody say, "You're gross," and that's how the show opens, which is completely sets the tone for everything else we got to experience throughout the show.
And starts making fun of you right away.
Oh, it's so funny, and like throughout the first episodes, when Junichi, or the first episode when Junichi and like Senpei and the boys are trying to like talk about like, like being in a couple, they all want girlfriends and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think like might be Senpei at one second who like Junichi's like, oh man, look at all the couples, they're having such a good time, and Senpei's like, I hope they all get VD.
Yes, Senpei, the miserable little shit he is. He's so overconfident, but once you confront him, he crumbles. Like, I hope they all get VD.
So weird. But yeah, that's kind of the world we're put in immediately. But the show starts really. The big thing is when Senpei, of course, as you said, says, Junichi, you should ask this girl out. You guys, and it's Yukana, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right, how do I ask her out? And they're like, all you got to do is get on your knees and beg for her to go out with you. And he's like, I mean, like, there's no way that'll work. But like, honestly, how worse can my life get than it is right now?
Oh, that cuts so deep.
So he does it. He does it. And, well, first of all, Yukana first sees Junichi and his friends looking at porn in school.
Yeah.
So immediate great first impression, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then after school, Junichi finds Yukana, gets on his hands and knees, and asks her to be his girlfriend. And of course, like that whole scene, like Junichi's like a little like wishy-washy and nervous throughout the entire show.
Right.
And gains confidence throughout, but he's got like confidence ground zero right now.
Yeah, it's great.
And he's like groveling, and Yukana's like, "You're funny. Yeah, you can be my boyfriend." And he's like, "Excuse me?"
And that's how the show starts.
And that's how it all begins. Yeah, and from there, there's just a bunch of different scenarios that they go through all the way up until the end. But
this is very much
points. Yeah,
this is a very much a slice of life show where it's it's not too heavy on plot. It's just heavy on putting these characters in fun situations and seeing what they do in them. And along the way, we gradually learn about their likes, dislikes, their past, whatever characteristics about them. And it's crazy because this was only 10 episodes long, but for a few of the characters, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of who they are and how they think, which in 10 episodes, that's pretty impressive.
It's pretty damn good throughout. I mean, let's talk about some of the other characters too, because the guy characters don't really get a lot of development or time in the sun, but they have the little quips now and then, and of course, you always have Minoru with a great pedo joke. Am I right, boys? But
there was
on the
so many pedo jokes,
so many. But on the girls' side, you have Nene, who we talked about, right? Who's just a walking pair of titties. Yes. And then you also have what's the Yukana, who's the main girl.
Yep.
You have Yukana's friend Ranko, who we meet, who looks like straight out of Los Angeles. Which is very funny.
So she's tall, super duper tan, huge boobs.
Yeah.
And she's very jealous because Yukana's her best friend, so whenever she sees Junpei interrupting what could be their time, she's mad. And at one point there's this tremendous scene where Ranko tries to have sex with Junichi to get him to forget about Yukana. And I forget exactly what the dub actor said, but she said something to the effect, "I'm gonna fuck you so hard," and then Junichi's like, "Ah!"
Yeah, because the funny thing about this is that Ranko is a very abrasive character, and she's just forefront, and her best friend is of course Yukana, and at the same time it is at first implied and then confirmed later that Ranko just wants to bone Yukana and wants to be in a relationship with Yukana, and she hates Junichi because he's in a relationship with her.
Right.
And that scene that you're referring to, where she tries to just absolutely just have sex with him, Junichi at the time is like, oh man, literally, if this was any other week where I already didn't have a relationship this week, this is crazy. I would have done this. But man, I cannot. And he refuses, which is really cool of him. But it's very funny, the struggle, because he's like, yo, before Monday, I've never even seen a woman come within 2 inches of me that wasn't my mother.
Yes.
And now this is just too much.
This is the not now.
Not now, of all times. And yeah, of course, he brushes her off. And they end up kind of entering into this pseudo-friendship where, Ranko's really protective over Yukana, but also at the same time kind of checking Junichi and being like, it's fine. She likes you, and, I want her to be happy, but at the same time, fuck you, don't fuck up, all right?
Exactly. So in a way, it's actually, it's the later stages of it are kind of reminds me of, several friendships and relationships I've had where it's or I've seen it before and I've experienced it myself, where it's when the new guy or the new girl enters the scenario, it's don't fuck up my friend. Have fun. Hate you, but have fun.
And can we also talk about with the scenes with Ranko, Yukana, just together, and a lot of scenes that happen throughout the show with an additional character as well, get very porny at times.
Yeah.
It is very interesting because Yukana, I don't know what happens. This scene happened at least 4 different times in 4 different durations, and I think the first slice we got of it was Yukana being oh no, I accidentally touched my titties, haha. And then Ranko's like, oh, what if I just touched your titties right now at school in front of everybody? And Yukana's like, no, please, Ranko. And Ranko runs up to her and just starts squeezing her titties in front of Junichi and everybody. Yes. And everybody's just like, oh. And Junichi's loving it. But Yukana's like, oh no, Ranko, please. And Ranko's like, yeah, let me get those big old titties. And she's touching her titties. And then Yukana's eventually like, oh, but now it feels good. And then I'm like, what is this? That happened so many times in different exact contexts.
There's a lot of groping going on. A surprising amount of groping happening in this show.
So much non-consensual groping in this show that turned into consensual groping. It was just very weird, very repressed sexuality over there, but it was very weird.
A little bit of that. But when it comes to and then when it comes to sexuality and also just the idea of just interest, romantically or otherwise, sexually, whatever, we get to Yui, who is the 4th girl, who is a lot. You don't think she's going to be a lot, but she's a lot.
Yeah. So Yui reads at first this normal schoolgirl who knows Junichi.
Yes.
And it's kind of oh, Junichi, can you class president kind of vibe? Can you help me with this?
I forget which. She might have even been a class president. I don't remember. But she was very well known in school, and Junichi always kind of fawned over her, and she always acknowledged him. It was never as far as they were friends. They were always acquaintances and always talked when they were in school, you know?
Yeah.
But we later learn a few things about Yui. So
notably that she is a Twitch streamer.
Yes.
And a furry.
She's a good number of things. But yeah, apparently at night she just puts on a wig and some makeup and just goes on Twitch streams. Junichi and all his pervy friends are fans. But the thing is, Yui gets too close to home where she starts talking about situations at school because she's furious once she learns Junichi is with Yukana because the only comparison I could make is Trixie Tang in The Fairly Odd Parents in the episode where her and Timmy get locked in a mall together and the only two people left in the world. Where Yui just feeds off all this attention and adulation she gets about being the prettiest girl or like the smartest
Tell me
or
I'm
whatever.
pretty.
Yeah, it says, feed me and tell me I'm pretty. Relationships 101.
Great analogy. Oh my God, that was stellar actually.
So what we get is we learn about Yui's psyche, and she's like having like flashbacks to middle school where she remembers being fawned over, and she's imagining Junichi like saying, "Oh, you dropped this," but she's imagining him with big dog ears and golden retriever energy, as it's now called. So
yes, big like himbo energy for Junichi. She's imagining him as her servant.
Yes.
And the word even slips out a few times when she's like, "You're not even good enough to be my servant." And Junichi's like, "What?" And she's like, "What? I didn't say."
She even calls him her dog a few times. So they have a conversation on the rooftop, and she goes, "You're my doggy." And Junichi's like, "Okay, what?
What are you talking about?" Yeah, very interesting.
She's jealous over Yukana for taking away like the person, not even a person she inherently liked, but the person who gave her the most attention. So she had feelings for this kid because he gave her all the attention she wanted, and it completely fed her ego. And now that it's taken away from her, she's doubting herself and she's angry about it. She's like, "How dare you take my doggy?" And this comes up more than once.
It's very interesting. And you know what, Rob? I gotta say, the first thing I said to myself, or the first thing I thought, when this character of Yui entered the show was, "Oh, this must be the Gendo origin story," because you got Yui, and eventually Yui's gonna meet Gendo, and they're gonna make Shinji, and then Shinji's gonna have to pilot Ava Unit 1. Oh boy, this is getting weird, guys. I was like, the only person that can make Gendo
Gendo's
is
the
fucked
dog?
up. Yes, because the only person that could make Gendo as fucked up as he is a furry Twitch streamer. Because once they get into you, it's over, man. Yeah, that's it. You're spending all your money monthly. You're building robots for no good goddamn reason. You know, it's a slippery
what
slope.
you're trying to tell me right now is that this version of Yui is actually Shinji's mom.
Yes.
I'm gonna need to take a sip of White Claw. Feel free to continue for a second. I have to think about everything right now. I just want to go put on my Asuka t-shirt and just hug myself because I don't know what life is anymore.
There is a quote then about Yui, because notably Yui, out of the four girls that we've mentioned, Nene, Yukana, Ranko, and Yui is the one with the smallest boobles, and everybody keeps reminding her of this, including herself.
They're very quick to remind her.
Very quick. And at one point, even Junichi's friends are talking about Yui, and one of them says she's a Tokyo 8. Small boobs aside. So
Tokyo 8.
So this is very interesting because what happens here, right? Each of these characters, Nene, Yui, Yukana, and Ranko, have kind of an interaction with Junichi early on, like throughout the series, and then eventually they all kind of become friends. Which is weird, but they all want to fuck Junichi. But they all also come to respect that he's with Yukana.
Ranko is weird with Ranko because Ranko doesn't, but she's willing to, so she can keep Yukana to herself.
Yeah,
So
because she wants to fuck Yukana mostly.
Yes, but then you have Nene, who is all down, and at one point is very close to just kind of like assaulting Junichi.
Oh yeah, she appears in his bed multiple times when he's sleeping, and he wakes up and she's like naked, and she's like, Junichi, you wanna like have some sexual encounters, and Junichi's like, no, please, Nene, it's school. I gotta go to school.
And it's like, no, I have a girlfriend, and also please get off me.
And there are actually a lot of terms that they bring up for Nene. I believe when somebody's insulting Nene, maybe it's Ranko early on. She's like, "What is that?" Here's the quote. What is that pair of tits on toothpicks doing talking to Junichi right now?
Tits on toothpicks.
Toothpicks.
Oh my god.
This show is ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing. Again, we have to give all the credit in the world to the dub here, because this entire voice cast and like the whoever did the script adaptation and whoever directed, every member of this team just knocked it out of the fucking park.
Every single member, everybody did their job to a T.
There was a very bunch of weird pop cultural references as well. I brought up the Yoda one earlier, where Shinpei was like, "Teach you, I shall." He goes Yoda for a couple seconds. And there's more of them than I...
Did you catch? There was another pop culture reference in there that was very, very specific to you and me, because there was at one point where Ranko, I think, was beating up somebody, might have been Junichi, and she does like a German suplex and it freeze frames, and whoever is saying on commentary, might have been one of Junichi's friends, like has a JR impersonation where he's like, by God, it was a German suplex!
Yes,
and it was
did do
hilarious. That. It was really funny. And I was like, oh, there's your pro wrestling. Okay, I'm in 10 out of 10 on this shit right now.
I was already in,
great.
But now I'm more in.
And the funny part about this show, right? I mean, the entire like through line, right? Junichi's eventually making these girlfriends.
Right.
And the guy friends and the girlfriends get together one day to like play a game, right? And basically... And the guys basically, or Senpei, who's like the mastermind, organizes this game so that they can all like make out with these girls that all don't want to spend any time with them and only want to hang out with Junichi.
Minoru doesn't even show up because he wants to go hang out with children.
At a daycare.
Yeah, he started working at a daycare at one point because they all got jobs. Everyone started working at like a manga kind of cafe, like manga made cafe, light novel cafe, whatever. But Shinpei goes, oh, Minoru, I know what you're into. Work at a daycare. And hilarity ensues when Minoru very much goes to a little girl and says, I can't do what I want to do because then I'd be a felon. And then it cuts to the two terrified teachers working the daycare going,
yeah, like, why did we hire this man?
Who hired the diddler?
But they decide when they all get together, though, you know, the game like doesn't exactly work in their favor because Junichi has to kiss Shinpei at one point, and it's very funny.
Shinpei tried to rig the game. You know, there's straws involved and a bunch of like drawing like random luck things. Shinpei tried to rig it where they would all get to make out with the girls, but Junichi was like, no, I'm not gonna let that happen. So he took the bullet and had to make out with Shinpei, and
hilarious.
I forget because I think someone called it out. It called it said to Junichi's like, you're a good guy for doing that. Like someone called out to what was going on. And
yep, I think it was Yui or something. But Junichi like didn't want his first kiss with Yukana to be like in some game. But then from that meeting, from them being all together, they actually kind of got along pretty well. And they were all like, oh, yo, you know what we should do, guys? You know what the next arc of this season is? And they were like, what? And they probably said that because they said that a lot of like episode numbers and stuff.
Yes.
And they were like, you know what we should do? For the next 2 episodes, let's get jobs so we can make money and all go to the beach. And this, Rob, is the first time in any anime I've ever seen that they are working up to the beach episode within the show. They want to get there. They set it as a goal, and they are actively working to get me, the viewer, and themselves
excited
to the beach episode. That's the main event for this show, and it's wild.
Is it? It's not frequently done. I don't think it's the first time I've seen it, but it's a very infrequent device. So if this is your first experience, this is probably a very good one to have because it's very serious in the approach. Like, all right, we need money. We're going to the fucking beach. Minoru's gonna work in a fucking daycare. Oops. And like I said a couple of seconds ago, a lot of them worked. I think it was like a light novel cafe where like
Yeah,
the girls
yeah.
dress up in costume and then have to read dirty books.
Yeah, they work at the girls all worked at a maid cafe, and Junichi worked there too as a chef for no reason. And then the other two guys worked at a manga organization like kind of place or whatever.
Yeah, I remember the manga scenes pretty well. They're recommending all the pervious shit and like, oh my god, you guys are selling so many books. They're like, we know what we want. We are the customer base.
It was really funny.
It was
great. And then, they get to the beach, and the beach episode is, fine. It's like everybody, gets closer together, everybody, you learn a little bit more about the characters, and then there's one point...
You can't remember where Minoru sees all the little girls in swimsuits and just goes, Shangri-La!
Yeah, he goes, this is paradise, Shangri-La! And there is one point during that episode where they have different bathhouses, right? And the guys, obviously, led by Shinpei, want to obviously see the girls' bathhouse. Junichi backs out, but then the owner of the bathhouses sets up traps. So they kind of have to do this crazy, the Marine-esque, run through the woods.
Yeah, I forgot about this. They do a World War II-esque get your man out alive mission.
It's like they're in Vietnam or something. It's crazy. Yes. They're running through and things are falling on them. Poison darts are coming out of nowhere. And they're like, oh my God. They just really don't want to see us. They just don't want us to be happy, huh?
Nope.
Yeah, that was a funny side thing that happened too.
That was a really very interesting sidebar. I just saw that. I didn't expect it. And that's the thing with a lot of the show's humor. It was very good about keeping you on your toes.
It did. Yeah. And then up until
I assume we're talking about the cuck arc. Is that what we're going to next?
Oh, yeah, we're talking about the cuck arc. That's the next thing I was going to mention. Absolutely. Well, I mean, we talked about this before kind of over text and whatnot, but this is the kind of show where they, up until the end, they're like, oh, wait, no, we forgot to have a conflict. And the conflict is now that there is this other dude who comes back and sees Yukana, who's not an ex-boyfriend, but some guy
someone
that
she knew in middle school.
In middle school, who got
it's
really
very
hot.
Yeah, you kind of makes it clear they were just kind of friends in middle school, but I mean, this is I think it plays on the male natural urge a little bit to be a little protective, and it's like, who is this person? And
right.
So Junichi, this is his first relationship, so it only makes sense that he's over jealous and constantly doubting himself. And so he sees this hot guy that Yukana knows, and so of course all the images go run through his head of were they together, were they this, were they that, were they whatever the fuck. So he starts doubting himself, and Yukana is like, I love it. This is pretty human, which I really liked. I liked a lot that Yukana got offended. It's like, oh, so you don't trust me? That was a surprisingly human direction for this to go. This one felt more like a proper TV drama where the guy gets uncomfortable with the girl's past and then the girl just goes, oh, you don't fucking trust me. I loved that.
Yeah.
I love the sentiment there. For a brief moment, the show got into let's call it stable sentimental ground, where it's where it played to very real human emotions for a second. And so it was a very firm baseline for the last two episodes to go the cuck arc, because
it was
every couple of minutes either Junichi or his friend says, you're about to get cucked.
Yeah, dude, I think it was there's one part where Shinpei at the beginning of that is oh, so there's this other guy, huh? And he wants to fuck your girlfriend, and Junichi's like, yeah, and he's like, man, good luck getting cucked, bro. Too bad. You're a cuck now.
At one point, Shinpei has to explain to Junichi what cucking is. It's just...
It's so funny. I thought it did a good job of that.
The whole scenario was fucking wild.
It was so stupid. And apparently, Junichi is at this cafe and he hears this guy talking. He's like, yeah, I'll probably fuck her. And then after I'm done, all you guys can fuck her. Pointing to his friends. I'm like, that's just weird, generally.
Well, yeah, the thing is, okay, so it's so funny because we went from a very real human place where, of trust issues, and then we went to the other extreme, no one talks like that.
No one says that. What do you mean? You guys can have her.
A table of 10 guys, yeah, I'm gonna bone this slut, and then everyone else is gonna bone this slut. I'm like, have you guys met people?
Human beings? And Junichi walks up and he's like, yo, take it back, dude. And he's like, no. And then they fight in a parking lot. And Junichi gets his ass handed to him, but he just keeps biting the guy's leg the whole time. Yes. And the guy's like, ow. And then
Junichi just refuses to give up. Because like he gets the lucky takedown in and starts biting his leg. And then like so some lucky stuff happens. But then next thing you know, 2 or 3 dudes go down because Ronko's there. She starts wailing on people. And then we get like the perv trio show up. Shinpei has a fire extinguisher for some reason. And then I forgot what happened. The douchey kid, Daisuke or Dai, whatever his name was, he almost hits a little girl. And Minoru loses his mind.
Wow. Finally some goddamn payoff for that entire... Like, you know, it's not even a storyline, but finally something, like, useful.
It's a payoff for 10 episodes of continuous pedo jokes. And then...
I'm like, what is the end game with this? And the end game was for Minoru to turn into the Hulk and beat the shit out of the main villain in the last 2 episodes.
Hell out of nowhere villain of the show. Which was fucking hysterical.
God, it was a ride. And then obviously,
he literally goes Incredible Hulk because like he grows like 3 times in strength and he's all angry. He's like, brr, man hurt little girl. I hurt man who hurt little girl. And the entire time, like, wow, this would be really endearing if you weren't a pedophile.
Yeah, like, wow, this would be a really great story about a guy that helped his friend out and just like beat the shit out of a guy because his friend needed his help, rather than this guy is much of a pedophile. Yeah.
And then
once again, everything good in this show comes with a little like,
caveat.
Okay, yeah, it's like oh, that was really funny. Oh, but I don't know about
I don't know about that. And then next thing you know, eventually, Junichi and Yukana see each other again. Like, you know, Junichi like texts her saying, "Hey, find me." They meet up, and Junichi just begs for forgiveness, kind of thing. And it was very cute, where he asked like, "Will you go out with me?" And she's like, "Why would you ask me that? You're already my boyfriend." And he's like, "Well, this time I wanted to do it right." And then eventually they have their first kiss, and I'm just like, as dumb as it was, I'm just like, something about that exchange. I'm like, kind of cute, a little cute.
Yeah, a little cute.
It felt like a nice, cute little bow to put on this raunchy mess of a show. So
yeah.
I was kind of all in on that. And again, this was my first girlfriend as a gal. Clearly we have a lot to say on this one because it was only 10 episodes worth of content. But
yeah, it was 10 episodes, but they packed it in. I feel like every episode had something absolutely outrageous happen in it, which is not easy to do. Not even like one. I would say 3 outrageous things happened in every episode of this show.
And I just wish I took better notes because there's so many lines of dialogue that fucking killed me. But trying to recall them off the top of my head is a little tough because there was so many. It was hard to take notes.
Yeah, I took a lot of notes on this one just as like themes and things, and like small one-liners, because there was just so much. There was just so much going on. Like 20 minutes of content. Like, don't blink because you might miss just like some giant titties and a pedo joke. So I mean, you know,
if you leave the room, if you leave the room to get a beer, and then even if like at short you're in an apartment like I am, and it takes you like only like 45 seconds to a minute to grab a beer and then get back to your chair, you can miss 1 or 2 very good jokes in that time frame.
Yes.
So this is a show you can't fucking blink during. But the question is, should you blink? Should you look at it at all? That's the question we have to talk about now. So I gotta start. I gotta come right at you because we've been talking a lot about the show. We're smiling a lot, but we're acknowledging some of the faults here.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just turn this around and ask you a quick question. Was this bad?
Okay. So I'm going to put this in the context of a few other harem anime that we've already watched.
Okay.
And a few other harem anime that are going to be involved in this month.
Okay.
This particular show was very funny.
Yes.
kind of in line with a High School DxD, only like a lot more chaotic. Even
Yes.
though the High School DxD show is about demons and angels in a war, this
Yes.
one was a normal slice of life, and it managed to be more chaotic and ridiculous than anything I've realistically most of any show I've ever seen. So I really commend it for that.
Yeah.
In terms of like the characters, I thought all the characters were hilarious. I really enjoyed Shinpei, one of Junichi's friends, because like I just could not stop laughing, because I just considered like just thinking about like back to like us in high school and like having friends like that and just like, being silly. It just hit hard for me, and I was like, this is hilarious. All the girls had their great Valley Girl accent, or like most of them did.
So good.
And all of them had something to offer. Junichi as a character warmed up to me. I didn't like him for the first like 8 episodes. The last 2, I was like, all right, this guy's got a little something, because like every time you kind of was like, yeah, like I want to go on this for a date, but like what do you want to do, Junichi? And he like every time would be like think to himself like, oh, I got to think of something cool to say. And I was like, no, dude, just say what you want to do, man. Just be a dude.
But
be who you are.
It played into his character, though. That's just the character of who he is. He's just super confident. Yeah. So
and something else I and something else I liked about that too is because his decision process was these 3 different like avatars in his head, like going through these different things, and one was like all about like boning. There was another one that's like the cool version of Junichi, and then there's one that's like the timid regular Junichi.
Yes.
And I thought that was very funny. So I thought that added a lot. Generally, and to sum it all up, pedophile jokes aside, all right, because I do not condone that, and I think it's very, very ridiculous that it was even a thing, because this show did not need it.
No.
Did not even need something that out of left field. That aside, I thought this was fucking great. I honestly, a lot of this show is garbage, and I do mean garbage as in like the porny scenes of everybody fondling each other's boobs, and like the horny stuff that goes on, and like all the scenes where everybody's like, oh, my skirt, and things like that. I could forego that, but generally, I think if I were to put this on with a group of friends, we would have a great time. It would be so fun. We would all have so much to talk about. We'd all have so many laughs. So for that purpose, and to compare it to the other harem anime that we've seen so far, I can't call it bad. I just can't call it bad. It's not bad. It's not awful. It's bad in some ways, as in just like ridiculousness of it all, and just like how
trashy.
chaotic it is. It's trash. It's trash. It's not bad.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Well, it's funny because we brought up this point a little bit because I'm being reminded of a few episodes we've done for a few different reasons, and I'll get into why right now. When I talked about when we talked about My Dress Up Darling and people calling My Dress Up Darling trash, I'm like, you guys haven't seen trash. This is trash.
This is the one.
There's so many more, of course.
Well,
but this is a trash anime, like much like Mother of the Goddess Dormitory, which we'll get to later. That's also trash. But now we're in real trash territory, which I love. That being said, this show is great. I'd recommend it to anybody. Because of all the reasons we listed.
Yes.
Because it is hysterical. It is wildly offensive. In a way, it's almost challenging how offensive it is. You know what I mean?
It is. Yeah, you're right.
It's an uncomfortable watch at times, because even with all of Minoru's jokes aside, there's still like a lot of left field jokes, a lot of like, what the fuck did Shinpei just say?
Yeah, there is some like wild stuff. Like
there's a lot of wild jokes, and it's very offensive, but that's part of the charm. It's so offensive. It's so unapologetic of what the show is. And again, we're giving a lot of credit to the dub here, but I think the dub really pulled it in for us, where we felt, oh my God, this is... Again, it's a testament of a bygone kind of era, because now, unfortunately, dubs are too quick. So a lot of times, if especially if you're doing a simul dub, or trying to get the dub out like only a week or two behind a seasonal anime, you don't have enough time for creative liberties with the script. You have to really stick to the script and just kind of follow it. This one, I assume they had time, and they really just took their time, and they wrote a comedic gem here. This thing is fucking hysterical. And even on the technical side, everything else aside from the comedy aspect, from the technical side, the show sounds more than fine. Show looks pretty good.
It looks great, honestly.
Yeah.
I was surprised with how like well it held up over time with like, oh, that's very nice actually.
I think the reason I think that is because I think they really knew what they were trying to do. So they pulled back a lot of things. The backgrounds weren't super detailed. They didn't have too many of them either. Even they kept in this like they kept in a very like mostly like very similar locations until we got to the beach, for example. But they were smart with they're very economical, smart with the money, whatever you want to call it. And all the characters continuously look great. I don't even really remember any scenes of the characters talking that I thought were spotty, like at all.
No,
like
no, I don't.
Like
I don't
the
think
animation was crisp, very clean, and super appropriate for the genre we were watching.
Yep.
And it really has upped my enjoyment more. And because seeing people's reactions to the trashy boob stuff is always kind of fun. But I feel like even in this show, I feel like because it doesn't go too full explicit at any point. But sometimes you'll see a picture. I remember Ronko's underwear. It was like under her skirt, like the panty shot. It was literally just a thong under her skirt, and I'm like, that's hysterical. That's just fucking hysterical.
And yeah, you also had these kind of like otherworldly whatever it is like coming into like censor things randomly. Like you saw like hands come in, be like, don't look at that, and then they had like hands come in and things like that, which is like a device that we saw in Mother of the Goddess Dormitory as well.
Right.
But just like not baked exactly into the show, but like comes in when they're like,
actually,
nipples.
Now there's a
we
question,
can't show that.
I don't really remember those because I watched the first several episodes while they were still on Funimation. So Funimation might have.
The Mother of the Goddess Dormitory ones were baked into the show, or at least as far as I remember, with like that girl, I can't remember, the pink-haired one, would just like
she did
put
that,
different signs on people to like cover nipples and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Were you referring? I thought I got my wires crossed here. For that device, you're talking about Mother's Goddess Dormitory, or did they do that in this show as well? Because
they did that in this show as well.
Really, I don't remember that because I like I said, the first batch of episodes, because you watched the whole thing on Crunchyroll, right?
Yes.
I watched the first batch of episodes while it was still on Funimation.
Oh, maybe it was a little more uncensored then. Okay.
I think so because I noticed in the Crunchyroll they bleeped out a few swear words.
Interesting. Okay. Huh.
So, which they did not do in the Funimation version. So we might be dealing with censorship levels because I know Crunchyroll
could be.
Crunchyroll was a little more censor heavy than Funimation, not by much. I can always go back to School Days where in Makoto's death scene, because for some reason the death scene in Crunchyroll, like all the blood was black, when in the original version it is bright red, very much blood, and there's more of it, and it was way darker. So Crunchyroll
always gotta go back to School Days, huh? Always gotta go.
It was super relevant to what I was talking about.
It was, and I'll give you that. Okay, I'll give you that. It was very relevant and great analogy. You've been really firing off with these analogies today. They've been very good. Continue what you're saying,
I think that's
sir.
what tequila does. I don't like Violence Jack. See, that was out of context and out of nowhere. There, I'll meet you halfway on this.
Very good, very good.
I'll throw the bone. But no, this show, it was trash, but it was great. It was a show that was very cognizant of the fact that it was trash. Or at least, maybe I shouldn't say that. The dub crew and cast was cognizant of how trashy it was.
Yes.
And so they polished a piece of coal and made it into a diamond, or whatever the fuck the analogy is. They added pressure. Apparently that's not how diamonds work. So it's funny.
Yeah,
but
right.
But no,
they squeezed the poop and turned it into mouse
lemonade.
on DVD.
What'd you say? I love these remote episodes because we continuously talk over each other, but since like there's like the slight digital delay where you try to stop and then there's just dead air for a couple seconds.
Yeah, we're just like, did you? Yeah,
it sounds like an old Verizon call.
It does. But either way, yeah, it sounds like we're both on the same page. Where like this is pretty trashy, but it's not bad, and on contrary, it's very fun. And I think I would definitely recommend it to people who kind of want something a little more like loose and like trashy, because it is like a great, just like it's a comedy, and I think it does that very well. I think it does the comedy elements very well, and I think it is very, very funny. And that I think is the champion of this whole season of show. Is just how absolutely laugh-inducing it is. Either when you're like painfully laughing.
For that exact reason, I would recommend it too, because it is just so funny. And honestly, I'd go a little further. Even if people just wanted an anime recommendation, I recommend this just to get their reaction. A total blind reaction. I think it's
just to see like what, yo, bro, what the fuck did you just tell me to watch? Oh my god, like exactly that too. It's great.
Exactly that. So I'm gonna give it an unabashedly recommended. I would totally recommend this to anybody just to have fun with it. I clicked it randomly, and look where we are now. This was a wild ride. We both agree it's trash, but near great. So take that as you will.
And a great addition to Harem Month.
A great addition to Harem Month. I'm so happy this just became a thing we did because we realized, oh my god, we have a lot of harem shows to cover. So we got a couple. We have a couple recorded anime and already. We have at least one or a couple more down the pipeline. I'm super excited to keep going with this month. And thank you guys for joining us. This was My First Girlfriend's a Gal. If you got Crunchyroll, go ahead and watch it. Really, it's 10 episodes. Break it up over. You can even watch one a week. It's fine. Break it up. Go at your own pace, but enjoy it because I promise you will enjoy it. Get a couple friends.
And you will not regret it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Get a couple friends. Get a couple snacks. If you enjoy alcohol, get a couple beers or White Claws. If you like, I can say now, if you like the marijuana and you're one of the states where it's completely legal. We just got back from Colorado, and wow, that was a new experience.
Oh boy, yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Go do that. Do have some stay at home, have some safe fun. If you need a night in, you want to have some safe fun. You don't want to venture out anywhere. Put on My First Girlfriend's a Gal. I totally recommend it.
Yeah, and just see what happens, But we got one more week in Harem Month, so stick around for that one, y'all. And we will see you next time, everybody. Thanks for listening, y'all.
See you next time. Have a great one. I'm gonna enjoy my more White Claw and tequila because that's the kind of mood I'm in.
Woohoo!
Yay! Clank.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
In your ear. Podcast Network.